There's a lot of hype surrounding OS-Level FSR when it comes to the Steam Deck. For those not in the know, FSR, aka Fidelity FX Super Resolution, is AMD's answer to NVIDIA's DLSS technology. To simply put it, it's a fancy algorithm for upscaling. And at higher resolutions, it looks pretty dang good. But the question is OS-Level FSR really the magic bullet the Steam Deck needs? Will it even look great on its 800p display? If you like my content, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and join my Discord server in the description below.
Will AMD FSR be incorporated into Steam Deck?
Very good question. So FSR is of course today available for some applications, already supports it. So the games that already include FSR will work as is, but also FSR support will be included as part of an OS future release. Therefore, you could potentially use it for games that don't natively support it.
There you go. For those who didn't know, months ago AMD announced that there would be OS-Level FSR, which technically means they can apply FSR to any game that doesn't natively support it. On paper, this sounds like excellent news. FSR offers much higher frame rates and performance at the cost of graphical fidelity because you're technically lowering your resolution and then increasing it with an algorithm. When you're dealing with 4K resolution or 1440p resolution on your own monitor, it looks pretty good. That said, I don't really believe these benefits hold true once you start going below 1080p, which is where the Steam Deck screen is at. By modern standards, a 1280 by 800 resolution is pretty small. It's an okay resolution for the size of the Steam Deck's display. The issue with FSR on a low resolution display isn't necessarily the low resolution display itself, but rather FSR itself. FSR renders the game at a lower resolution than native. It's then upscaled by their fancy algorithm. When your resolution is that low, you will notice the decrease in graphical fidelity. But that's not my concern with OS-Level FSR. My concern with OS-Level FSR is text. This also includes HUD elements. Regular FSR on games that actually support it know the difference between their HUD, text, and, in-game elements that are being rendered. But OS-Level FSR makes no clear distinction between any of those. As a result, text, and by extension HUD elements, can suffer because of this. Text making use of typical reading fonts tend to suffer the most from FSR. Highly stylized fonts tend to suffer less from this though. While I feel the most obvious use case for FSR is to upscale from 720p to a much higher resolution, there are plenty of mad lads out there that want to upscale to 720p from an even lower resolution. I'll be using Yuzu to demonstrate this. This is Yuzu running The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. The visuals look quite alright, especially with that giant Yoshi egg. The Zelda logo itself looks pretty good, but there's some weird fuzziness, especially around this. What I didn't tell you was that this was Yuzu running the game at about half the native resolution and upscaled with FSR. You can tell just how much fuzziness there is around the text. This is an unfortunate side effect of upscaling from a really low resolution. The algorithm doesn't have enough details to fill in the gaps properly. This is FSR upscaling from the Switch's native resolution up to a higher resolution. There's still a bit of fuzziness around the text, but it looks a lot cleaner. And this is without FSR running at the Switch's native resolution. All of these screenshots were taken at a 1080p panel. Aside from that little bit of pixel peeping I did for the 3 images, Link's Awakening looked quite alright. But this is as bad as it can get. This is Breath of the Wild running at half the native resolution with FSR on and FXAA anti-aliasing on. Like seriously, look how bad that text is. You can barely make out what the words are supposed to mean, continue, new game options, and amiibo. You actually cannot read what version you're playing on. And beside the copyright and what I assume is the year, that's supposed to say Nintendo. You can't even make out the words there. This is as bad as it gets, my friends. When text becomes illegible, games become unplayable. That said, there is a very good use for FSR. That's upscaling from your native resolution to a much higher resolution. Like if you were to dock your Steam Deck to a 4K TV, you could feasibly blow it up onto a 4K panel and it would look pretty good. Once you start FSRing from a higher resolution though, say, in this case 540p, things start to look a lot more presentable. This is 720p upscaled to 1080p with FSR. As you can see, it looks pretty good. There's a little bit of fuzziness going on around here, but you're never going to notice that in actual gameplay. And this is 1080p. This is what the game looks like when you zoom in, obviously. The font here is very crisp and it's very readable. As demonstrated with Breath of the Wild, text is definitely the biggest pitfall of FSR. Now, if a game were to have official FSR support, you would not be seeing these issues with text. When a game has full FSR support, the only thing that's downscaled is the actual, game itself. No text elements, no HUD elements, just the 3D parts of the game, the moving parts of the game. Given that AMD has made FSR open source, if you're a game developer and you're making graphically demanding games, you should definitely consider putting FSR in your game. That said, OS-Level FSR is very promising, provided you're docking your Steam Deck and, playing your games on a 4K TV.